with cool art that we've created. So that's our ultimate goal. And so I just want to start with that, to say that's the crux of everything we're going to be talking about today. All of the practical things that we believe about building teams and getting to the stage on the weekend. It's all wrapped around introducing people to the real Jesus, and it starts with us. That if we don't experience the real Jesus on a daily basis and encourage our teams and help our teams experience the real Jesus on a daily and weekly basis, we can't really do that to our congregation every week. So I'll just start with that. Let's pray real quick. Father, we invite you into this conversation. We ask that the Holy Spirit be a part of what we're doing. We want the words that we share, the ideas that we share today, to be impactful and useful. God, we don't want to ramble. We don't want to go places and chase rabbits down the trail. We want to speak with your authority and speak wisdom. And I pray you bless our time together in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. All right. So here's our introduction, and we'll do this by the book here. To create our worship experiences each week takes a team of musicians moving in the same direction with the same goal, leading people into a face-to-face encounter with God. The question is, how do we get everyone on the same page every week? This workshop will explore 3 ways we help keep our musicians healthy, informed, and all pulling in the same direction. The first 2 we're going to talk about are preparation and rehearsal. So one of the things that we're very passionate about is, and we've learned our lesson on, is that if we don't prepare before we get into rehearsal, we're going to ultimately fail and waste people's time. And that's our job, honestly, as worship leaders, as worship pastors, as creative directors, as musicians and our full-time staff. That's really what we're hired to do throughout the week, is to get things set up for the weekend. By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. We found that when we don't do our work before we get to rehearsal, we end up wasting time and ultimately delivering a product that doesn't live up to expectations. So here are a few ways we set ourselves up to succeed in rehearsal. And the first part of this is, be realistic. Do you have the right players scheduled for the songs you've chosen? Yep, I hear that, amen. Are you attempting musical moments that you'll never be able to pull off? So how many of you have been in that situation where you have these incredible ideas during the week, and then you get on stage and go, oh no. We don't have the right drummer, we don't have the right guitar player, we don't have the right singer. We didn't put the song in the right key for the singer that we have scheduled for this weekend. Daniel, tell us about some times that we have maybe made that mistake in the past.
Oh yeah. So we had a drummer who really couldn't play a shuffle, and we didn't really think that through. We had a song, like our opening song was a shuffle. We got to rehearsal, had to completely change our set, which we had spent a lot of time putting together during the week, because we didn't think it through. This drummer cannot play a shuffle. We actually do that a lot with some of our songs too. We love to play Lincoln Brewster tunes. That guy's a guitar god. I can't play that stuff. And so we rearrange the songs to fit to our players' strengths. And so that's a big one for us, is playing to our players' strengths.
Yeah, we have very specific meetings where we talk about personnel, as opposed to, in fact, we've had this discussion a lot on our creative team, is, do we pick the set first, or do we find the musicians first? So what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Do we pick the songs to fit the players, or is it easier to go find the players to fit the songs that we want to do that weekend? So it really is a juggling game of who do we have available, because not everybody's available all the time, especially in the summer, right? So many people are out on vacation, and during a lot of the vacation times throughout the year. So not all of your players are available every time, and yet your pastor is saying, I really want this song. I really want this moment of the service. You're like, we don't have a drummer that can do that. So you have to be realistic. So that's the first part. Do we have the right players scheduled for the songs we've chosen? Are we attempting musical moments that we'll never be able to pull off? The second part is this. Test your set. Play through the songs work through the transitions, and check the sounds. So I'll say that again. Play through the songs, work through the transitions, and check the sounds.
So practice before rehearse.
Yeah, right.
That's what that is. We're implementing something new here where our staff, the musician team that we have on staff, will get together on Monday afternoons and we'll play through the set. We'll check for any holes in the set. We'll run through our transitions. We'll build all of our sounds. Our other worship pastors from other campuses will be in there as well, so they'll have a good idea of what they're going to do on their stages. So by the time we all hit rehearsal the next night, we are all completely ready to go. All of our sounds are ready to go. All of our we're just very prepared.
And we have a concept that we practice on called fail often and fail early. Don't wait until if your rehearsal is on Saturday night or Saturday afternoon or Sunday morning before your first service. That's the worst time to realize you've made a terrible mistake in the songs that you've chosen, the transitions that you've planned on. And look, many of you may be sitting here going, well, I don't have, like most of you are probably thinking, I don't have a band on staff. I can't pull a bunch of guys in on Monday morning and run through the set like it's going to be that following weekend. But you can do something. If you're a musician, you should be able to get to a keyboard or to a guitar, and maybe pull a couple other people in, maybe one other person that you can bounce things off of. We love the rule of three. We love having three people in a room when we're making musical decisions because one is always going to be, it's their idea, and someone else is going to have a counter idea, and someone else is going to be able to make the final decision. So you need it. We love having a group of three people so that someone can break the tie and say, I think this idea is better. So have someone that you can bounce this off of, but at the very least that you should be able to do is pick up a guitar, go to a piano, and play through the entire set. If possible, get the singers that you're going to use that weekend to come in with you at some point early in the week and sing these songs. Are you sure this isn't too high for you? We've done this in the past too. We've sat through and go, oh, it'd be great if we could do this song in B flat because it goes great into this next song in F. Perfect transition. When a lot of times we've done that song in A, the first song in A, and going to F is not a very smooth transition. Mm-hmm. But we go, oh, I'm sure she can sing it in B flat. It's not that high. Or we'll even call or text that singer and say, hey, could you sing this song in B flat? Oh yeah, I got it. What happens when we show up on Saturday? Like, oh gosh, this doesn't work at all. Or the sounds don't work. So I know, Daniel, this is something that you've come in just like saying, stop everything. This song is not going to sound the same on guitar in B flat that it does in A. Or, that everything has to change, that our sounds have to change. So don't just assume that the roadmap that you've chosen for the weekend is going to work. You need to fail early. Give yourself a chance to get in some kind of environment where you can play through these songs and work through the transitions. Jordan talked to us about some transitions that have worked for us in the past and maybe haven't worked.
One transition that we overlooked was, you mentioned it earlier, was we were doing a song tonight called Beautiful Surrender, and we did the song one weekend, and it's originally in B flat, I think. And so the next key that we're going into or the next song that we're going into, the key was B. So it's just working through, like, okay, whenever you're looking on paper, we'll just bump it up, like just bump it up half step, no big deal. And we even sang through it with one of our lead girls. Her name is Diana. She's on staff. You've seen her before. She sang through it. She's more of a high range than most girls. So she said, "Oh, that's great. I think that'll work. That's great." Played through it, and we thought it was good. And then Daniel gets word of it like 2 hours later, and it's just like, that's not going to work in B. And we're just like, but we played through it. It's going to be great. And come to find out, she wasn't going to be there that weekend, so it was pointless for her to sing through it because she's not going to be the one that's going to sing it. And so whenever you have a lot of stuff to do, especially just wearing multiple hats or doing whatever you're doing, it's just easy to kind of like, is that going to work? Good. Okay, you're just looking for a yes from someone. This is going to work? Yes. Okay, good. Fine. I'll move on. But it's really imperative that, again, going back to your players, your singers, make sure that the people that are going to be actually communicating the song during the weekend, that they know, hey, we're raising this up. Otherwise, now you got a song going from B flat to B. Now we got to look at changing a song. We got to look at creating some kind of transition where it's not going to feel awkward. So that was one instance.
Yeah. So how many? Okay, so let's go on to the next. Let's go on to the next thing here. Communication is critical. Get the details to your band and your production team in a timely manner. So how many artists do we have in the room? If you're an artist, you're just, I mean, you qualify yourself as an artist. How many project managers do we have in the room? Like 3.
Yeah, I was guessing there's not going to be many.
Okay, so here's the thing we found out about artists. We suck at getting information out. We do. We don't. It all lives right up here. We hear it in our heads, we feel it in our hearts, and we give the least amount of information out that we possibly can. And when we get to rehearsal, it is a nightmare because production didn't realize that Jordan was supposed to play electric guitar this week instead of acoustic, and that we changed keyboard players last minute, or we changed drummers last minute because that one guy had an emergency. We brought another drummer in. Well, he doesn't hit the drums nearly the same with the same velocity as the drummer that was coming in. We haven't. This has been a problem too. We've uploaded the wrong version of a song on the Planning Center. Has anybody else done that? And you get to rehearsal, and everybody's learned it in B flat, and we're saying, okay.
They prepared.
Yeah, they did it. They did what we asked them to do. And you say, oh, no, we're playing that in B. And this the glaze that comes over their eyes. Like, seriously? I spent good time at home learning this in a different key. So communication is critical, and if you're bad at communication, that's okay. That means you're an artist. But we have to step up the communication game. It's been a real blessing in my life to have Brittany Turner come on as our arts project or our worship project manager, because her love language is details and dates and emails and calendar entries. Whereas I'm just like, I don't care what's on my calendar. Just make sure I'll tell you when I'm here and I'll tell you when I want to leave. And you put anything on my calendar that needs to get on there that I need to do. I don't want to touch it because it's just not my love language. I want to talk about music and the way things feel and how we, what we're communicating. I don't care about what time this meeting starts and this meeting ends, or when these details have to get to that person. But where we have fallen down as a worship team is not getting the information to the people that need it the most. And the people who need it the most are our band and our production team. And if you want to continue to build that wall higher and higher and thicker between you and your production team, continue to not get them information, because they thrive on it, and it's what helps them do their job really, really well. And I'm sure we could bring up tons of examples on how we screwed this up in the past. And we're still not perfect. I mean, it's happened this week with the massive amount of information, with all of the rehearsals, and with all of the services that we're doing, with the different bands coming on and off stage. We've missed about a dozen things where Andrew will be in the sound booth going, when was somebody going to tell me about this? When was somebody going to tell me that we were adding another track to this song that I don't even have room for on my board now? When did you tell me you were switching singers in the middle of the set? Was anybody going to tell me that? So information has to be downloaded in a timely manner, in a way that everyone can receive it. And I will tell you, we have about how many different, I don't know if this is a good or bad thing, but how many different communication systems do we have?
Planning Center, PaceQ,
GroupMe, text,
just text,
email,
like 4 or 5, I would say.
Yeah,
not the best. I think 4 or 5.
Yeah, I would say if you don't have at least one information delivery system other than text and email, then you should get one. We use Basecamp as a creative department. This is not where songs live. This is not where scheduling lives. This is where things like inputs, and this is how we communicate with our production department.
Like gear list for the weekends.
Yeah, exactly. And with our creative department too, about music that needs to be underneath a video or a live testimony or things that are happening beyond the scope of just making worship songs. we have to have some kind of information delivery system where all that can be housed. And what that does is also keeps us accountable, because we know who's responsible for putting that information there, and if it's not there, we know that person didn't do what they were supposed to do. So it keeps us accountable as well. And I know many of you probably use Planning Center as well, correct? Best way to keep your band informed. One of the things that we haven't been good at, but we're getting a lot better at, is highly encouraging people to RSVP on Planning Center, just to make sure. We've had some situations in the last couple of months where we have a band tech every weekend that didn't show up because they didn't read their Planning Center invitation, and we just assumed, because they never check yes or no, and they always show up, that they had read it. So make sure you get a hold of your communication system and have something that is consistent and that everybody can understand. And like I said, we use Basecamp. We use for our departmental information, interdepartmental information. We use Planning Center for all of our communication with our band and our worship teams. And then we use something called GroupMe, which is an app, and there are lots of apps out there that you can use just for a little ticky-tack communication. So dinner is going to be at this time. Hey, we've changed call time to this time. Something that not everybody needs to know except the immediate team that is joining that weekend.
What the last thing with this, I think we talked about this earlier saying this, but the painful reality is that not making a decision or not having a plan, walking into rehearsal, not communicating to your band, your production accurately, is communicating something. Whether you choose it or not, basically not making a decision doesn't mean that it doesn't affect anybody. I think we just get in our own little world, like, if I just kind of push that off, it won't make a difference. But then you have people that, hey, was this thought through? And you're like, shoot, I should have thought through it. Just think about your house. Whenever you have someone to come in your house, they're visiting, they're your guest. If everything is trashed, if you haven't cooked, if your house smells like pee and poop, like you are communicating to them.
From the dog, right?
From the dog, yeah. Okay. Or not.
You don't want to go to Jordan's house.
You're communicating to them that you don't care about them. Whether you're trying to or not, you're communicating that to them. Same thing with your band. If some churches, if you guys have a production guy, God bless you. It's awesome. They are a blessing, a major blessing to the body of Christ. If you have not communicated to them, what that tells your band is that you didn't care enough about your band to communicate to everyone, and you're ready to go. And this is something that we have learned, me personally, painfully learned in the past. Whenever you get into a room full of people who are ready to go, give me the vision, give me the plan, and you haven't communicated to everybody. Now we're taking 30 minutes to figure out a guitar tune when we could have figured it out, like yesterday, that kind of thing. So just buttoning up details.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great word. All right, let's move on to number 2. This is the third way we can set up our band, or second way that we can set up our band for a great weekend experience, and that's in our rehearsal. You'll perform in the manner that you rehearse. We found that focused, energetic rehearsals set our team up for a confident weekend experience. Here are a few things we do to set ourselves up for a successful rehearsal. Number 1, decide ahead of time who has creative control. Someone's got to make the decision. Who is that on your team? Is it you? Do you have someone that is making the final creative call on how your music is sounding, how your transitions are going? Does it feel right? What we do is we have a designated producer in the room listening that typically is not on stage that weekend. That is a luxury. We understand that full well. We have 5 full-time worship leaders on staff, and so we appoint one person, or if it's Daniel who's not playing that weekend and he can be out in the congregation or in the seats and be able to listen, because how many of you know that what you hear on stage is not what's going on in the room? What you hear in your monitors is not reflective of what's going on in the room, right? So the best place to be, the best place to make decisions is in the room. Mm-hmm. And if you can be out there, that's great. If you're the leader, if you're the one that's going to stand before your leadership team or your pastor on Monday to give an account for how well the worship went that weekend, it needs to be you, right? You don't want to palm that off on somebody else and go, well, they told me it was sounding really good. it always comes down to you as the leader. So it either has to be you or someone you trust to have your heart and your mind to say this is exactly what we're going after. So we do, I'll just throw this in there as well, we record our rehearsals as well. So the last run through of every song, either we record them song by song after we feel like they're exactly what they're supposed to be, or we do one final full run through of the set, depending on how we feel about the weekend and what needs to be accomplished. We'll do a recording so that we can, if I'm not on stage, or Jordan's not on stage, or Daniel's not on stage, we have the opportunity to sit and listen to that afterwards and go, okay, I have a couple of days to maybe make a few minor changes.
And if you don't have any gear where you can record it, I mean,
those things work pretty well.
I know it's not the best for sound, but you can listen back and get a feel for the flow of the whole set. And especially if one of the production guy's not going to be there, you can record on your phone. Hey, let's listen to this together, and let me pull you in on this, hear the flow of the set. So it doesn't have to be this amazing recording. It can just be anything, a phone, I'm going to go old school tape recorder, whatever you want to do. But,
Yeah, exactly. Do you have anything to add to that? No. Okay, so first of all, decide who has creative control. Then, decide who gets a creative voice. Here's what you don't want. You don't want everybody on your team having an opinion. I know that sounds rough, like elitist, like you don't get to tell me what you think. But if you think about it logically, if you have too many voices, everything gets jumbled. We found this when maybe two of us were in the room together, and when you have two, remember I talked about the power of three? This is the power of one at this point. But we would have two or three of us leaders out in the room trying to make a decision on what we felt like was happening with the song, or with a certain sound or a flow between songs. And if you don't have one person making the call and being responsible for it, you just end up with a jumbled mess. Whit used to teach us all the time to artists. He would say, there has to be a singular vision. One person that says, I've thought this all the way through, I know how it's supposed to feel, I know what we want to say, and I'm going to push us all the way down the track until we get to that place. So decide who gets a creative voice. If you trust your drummer, and we do, one of our drummers, John Mitchell, he played this morning, he owns his own studio and makes custom projects, and you've heard some of his, a lot of the music that's been playing during the afternoons, that's from his company, and they make what would you call it?
Music.
Yeah, they make music all the time, and it's really good. So there are a lot of times we'll just go, John, what do you think? John, will you come out here and listen to this? Because he's an expert, he's a professional. So we'll allow John to come out and listen sometimes and give us feedback. But you don't want everybody giving their feedback, because then you've got just a jumbled mess. So be very careful who you allow to have a creative voice.
Before we move on, we skip over, after decide ahead of time who has creative control, those next few are who makes the final call on flow, the sound, and
yes, sorry about that. Yes,
when it's time to move on,
right,
and then.
So I think we did. I think we kind of covered that with
who keeps
who has final say,
who keeps the momentum flowing in your
right, who has creative control, who keeps all of that going.
Just for you guys that are going on.
Okay, let's read that again then. Decide ahead of time who has creative control, who makes the final call on the flow, the sound, and when it's time to move on. Because how many of you gotten stuck in a moment that you can't get out of? Seriously, you've been in a place. That's a good U2 song. You've just been in a place where you're like, I can't. I think it feels good. I don't know. Can we try it one more time? And your band goes, you can't play it another time. I've been in a situation where I'm like, dude, I'm going to throw up if I have to sing this song again. It's good enough. We're not going to, whatever you're looking for, we're not going to find it tonight. So let's move on. So there's value, and let's just push ahead. Guys, listen, art is never finished. You're going to run out of time or run out of money.
That's good.
Okay?
That's right.
So get to a place where you're comfortable and you can stand for this art that you've created, for this moment that you've created.
It's a big reason why we work on our sounds during the week before we get on stage. Because the last thing we want to do is be cooking through a rehearsal. Energy is high, spirits are high, we're having a great time, and then everything grinds to a halt because we need to build a new piano patch because that one that we used was terrible. And 20 minutes goes by, 30 minutes goes by sometimes. You see band members.
Device.
Everybody checks out, and it's hard to get that going again. It's hard to get the momentum, the excitement, the energy back up to where you had it before.
Or if you're in a place where you actually need to hear those things in the room, and maybe the rehearsal is your only time, communicate to the band. Hey, we may spend 30 minutes here working on piano sound. Like you may
go get a coffee or something.
You may not be at a point where you know exactly how a sound's going to sound in your room, and that's okay. At least communicate.
And let me tell you this. Every once in a while, we do a really easy set, just to give our band a break. And we typically go about 4 hours in rehearsal, so probably an hour per song is or singing.
Is that long or short?
It's long. Holy moly!
Yeah. We go about 4 hours per rehearsal. That's about average. Sometimes longer. But let me tell you something. Yeah, every once in a while, we rehearse typically on Tuesdays. We typically rehearse on Tuesdays, and we'll start around 6 o'clock. We'll feed everybody, and then that makes all the difference.
Oh yeah, go for 8 hours.
But seriously, to honor our band and their time, every once in a while, we'll do a set where we're not changing anything. Guys, we're going to play it exactly like we played this song 3 weeks ago. Exactly like we played this song. Nothing's going to change. So if you have prepared ahead of time, hopefully you did, then we're going to breeze through this rehearsal. Now, never say never. I always tell our guys this, like, don't promise something you can't deliver on. But it is so refreshing when you've only been there for, if you're used to being there 4 to 5 hours, and you're out while it's still daylight out, and they can actually go have a date with their wife afterwards. That makes a big deal, and you want to start putting money in the bank in that way, so that you can say, hey, not every rehearsal's like this. Remember 2 weeks ago we were in here just for a couple of hours. So I would encourage you to do that. Be sensitive to the time constraints. We'll talk about that a little more in a minute. Okay, let's move on to the next thing. Under rehearsal, don't leave anything to chance. If you don't figure it out in rehearsal, you're likely to come up short in the service. So this begs the question, how much leeway do we give to the Holy Spirit once it comes to the weekend? And I will tell you this, I know a couple guys at a church that are known for spontaneous moments. I won't say who they are, and I won't tell you who I talked to, but I asked about this very thing, about what about these spontaneous moments that you guys, they're just these incredible moments, and he goes, well, the little secret is they're not so spontaneous. That we actually rehearse a lot, and we rehearse a dozen different options that we could go to. The spontaneous aspect of it is the band doesn't know where I'm going to go. I'm going to pick one of the Holy Spirit's going to show me to pick one of those 12 things that we rehearsed. So there is rehearsal involved. There isn't anything left to chance. So if you leave your rehearsal and you haven't figured something out, and you've decided we'll just figure it out when we get back on the weekend, or we'll figure it out when we get on stage, you're setting yourself up for failure. And everybody knows that 2 seconds of silence on stage is like an eternity. Like you can literally see the tumbleweeds going across the stage. When something doesn't roll, and you didn't work on that transition a couple more times, and if you work through it, and the band didn't quite get it, but you're like, oh, that's fine. You guys will get it. And you walk away.
That's a disconnect too, for somebody out there who's worshiping, and all of a sudden something goes wrong or something goes quiet. It takes them out of a moment, of a face-to-face moment with God that they might be having at that time. So we work really hard to make sure things are running smooth like that.
And if you're running tracks, which most of you probably are these days, we do too. If you're running tracks in your track system, whatever you're Ableton or Pro Tools or whatever you're running, and it fails in the middle of rehearsal, don't go, oh, I know what that was. It won't fail on the weekend. Yeah, it will. They probably will. Take some time, fix it, run it again. And then just be sure, run it again. Just make sure. This is too important for us to leave any of this to chance. And we should have this all mapped out. I mean, we believe that the Holy Spirit can speak to us just as plainly on Mondays as he can on Sundays. So ask the Holy Spirit to be a part of your planning process and work these things all the way through. Be a worshiper on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Don't just be a worshiper on Saturday and Sunday. Worship in your job. Worship with new songs and getting these songs into your repertoire and the way you believe your band can handle it, your singers can flourish with these songs. Don't leave anything to chance. Think through all of your transitions. Think through all of your moments on stage and make sure all of your band members are prepared. Okay, let's move on now. So this is number 3 in the 3 ways that we set our band up for a great weekend experience. So I told you earlier that art was a big deal for us. In fact, we had a big mural on one of our walls on our creative 3rd floor. And it said, create unforgettable moments that people want to repeat. Which sounds like, yeah, that's the reason to come to work. I'm going to create these unforgettable moments that people want to repeat. Just blow people's minds so they can't wait to get back the next weekend. The thing is, you give your best ideas. You even have Jordan flying through the air. And you go, now what? Now what are we going to do? That mentality we found starts to breed this uh-oh mentality. Are we going to be able to do this again? And the pressure starts to build about being awesome all the time. And our teams feel that. And that's sometimes when our teams start checking out, because to be more and more awesome, you got to put more and more time. You got to recreate yourself over and over and over again. It's the never-ending cycle of an artist, of that brooding artist, like, it's just never good enough. It's never good enough. And so we painted over it. It's gone. It's a white wall now. And the banner that we've been flying for the last year and a half is people over projects. We would rather pour more into people than we do into getting them to do what we need them to do on the weekends. And so we have a way, let me read this to you. Healthy teams made up of healthy individuals produce consistently successful results. So here are 7 areas of focus that we can spot check with our team each week. So God gave these 7 things to me about a year and a half ago, and they're really, honestly, just now making a lot of sense for our team. These are 7 worship disciplines that we can spot check with our teams each and every week. Here's the deal, guys, is that we have decided we want to love Jesus even more than people. And so our 3-tiered process now is Jesus, people, art. In the past, we would have these great ideas about these big projects we want to do on the weekends or at Christmas or at Siege. Yeah. Then we go find the people that can help us do those things and pull these things off. And oh yeah, God, we sure hope you like this, because it's all for you. And we just realized that's backwards. It's not like we were dissing God by thinking that way. That's just the way we approached this. We approached it from the wrong angle. Instead of saying, God, what do you want from us? We just want to know you more. If we can get closer to you, we can get more of your heart and more of what you want for us and our teams. And we spend time with God, and God says, go love people. Go love people. Jesus said these words. He said, the greatest commandment is this: love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. The second is just as important. Love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus, people, you. Jesus, people, you. And as long as we keep that order, we're going to succeed in introducing people to the real Jesus. But it starts with our team. So here are 7 things we're able to spot check with our teams every week and do these on a consistent basis so we know that our teams are being filled with Jesus first. Music second. Number 1, pray. Seems simple, seems like the duh moment, right? You gotta pray. You gotta pray just to make it today. Yes, I'm a child. So we have to learn to pray. We have made a conscious decision to ask the Holy Spirit to be a part of every meeting, every rehearsal that we do. And that wasn't always the case. We would just dive into content. Let's dive in and get these problems solved. It's human nature. But to take a moment and say, Holy Spirit, we ask you, we need you to help us be creative in this situation and make the right decisions. Because here's the thing, God's already seen our services next week. He's already seen them. He knows what he wants. He knows who's going to be there. He knows the words he wants said. And guess what? He'll get the job done. We just want to be a part of it. That's the greatest joy. Wow, that when the day is done, when the weekend's done, is to be a part of what God is doing and be in sync with him. So God already knows what's going to happen next weekend. We're asking him to share some of that insight with us and illuminate that. What do we need to do? Let's help us put this together. So we need to learn how to pray. I would encourage you to do that. If you're not doing that already, pray with your teams. Pray in your meetings more, in your song selection meetings, in your service planning meetings. Ask God to be part of that. And then if you want to see where one of your team members is, ask them to pray out loud. Ask them to pray in a group setting. And you'll find out if they're spending time with God or not. So that's the first thing. We want to talk about prayer. We want to talk about it a lot. The second thing is, what are you reading? Are you reading? Are you reading the Word first and foremost? Ask your team members to share a scripture before the beginning of service in your team time. Or say, who here has a verse they've been reading? Tell me something you've been reading this week. That'll let you know if people are volunteering. Oh, I read this. Oh, I read this. Be ready in and out of season. Let's encourage reading, getting into the Word. Let's get into books about being better Christians and personal growth and there's so many great books out there to help us get farther in our ministries and in our life. And we about every 3 or 4 months, I'll put a list of books up and I'll say, hey, whatever book you guys want, I'll buy it for you. Let's get books for our team. Let's get people reading. Give them the opportunity to have things that they can dig into and enrich their lives. So what are you reading? Number 3, are you talking? Are you in a small group? Do you have anybody in your life you can pour your problems out to? You can sit and talk to, and you'll be surprised how many people are lonely that they don't talk to anybody about anything they're going through. We've had people on our teams that when you get them one-on-one and close the door and say, how are you doing really? Like, I've noticed this about you. Is there something going on? And man, the floodgates open. And you're like, I had no idea this is going on because you're not talking to anybody. We have to talk. We have to set up situations where we can talk to one another. God did not create us to do life alone. Let's talk. Let's get into a relationship with one another. And I would encourage you, if your church doesn't do small groups, do some kind of meetup with your teams. Do coffee together. Give your worship team a forum so they can tell you what's going on in their lives. Tell them their frustrations. You need to hear it. And that leads us to number 4. Listen. Are you listening to what your team's telling you? Are you listening to what they're feeling, their struggles? Have you listened to what their family dynamic is lately? Are you listening? And the second half of that is, what are you listening to?
That's great.
Are you sitting in service? Or are you watching the service from the green room? On your phone? Having a conversation, getting distracted. Are you really sitting in service? This is a problem for every church. And the problem is not, hey, get your butt in service.
Yeah.
The answer is, hey, will you join me? I'm going to go sit in service. Jordan, tell them what you've done lately with our team. I think it's just awesome.
It's not an otherworldly idea, but there's just so much that goes on here. It's realistic though. If you're going to be on our team, it requires a lot of you. First of all, time. Second of all, energy, spirit, passion. I mean, this is an honor to do what we do. This is a privilege, and we're asking people to give up their time, not paying them to say, would you do this with us? So we require a lot of them. So one of just the little things that we just started doing the past few months is just sitting together in the Saturday night service. And it wasn't an otherworldly idea, but one thing one of our team members has said from our journey since I've been here since 2009 is she's been with us for a long time, and she had just made a comment that, man, bless me. She's just like, I've never felt more family than I do right now. And specifically saying about just sitting together, just including everyone. You are the visionary. You are the person that is setting the precedent for where we're going for the weekend. So people look up to you. People will follow you. People, think of themselves lower than you. It's just natural. Like whenever you're the leader, people just look up to you. Literally, they look up to you, and so they say, "Hey, why don't you come? Like, let's go sit together." And some of you, I would say, are better than that than we are. Like some of you are just amazing at that. We're learning that right now. I'm learning that just to continue to include our team and just to sit together in service. That's just one thing. That is just a practical way to say, we love you. You're part of the family. Let's do this together.
There's another side of listening that I want to let Daniel talk about right now. Just about it's not only who you're listening to. Are you opening yourself up to your team to let them talk to you? Are you listening to your pastor's messages every week? But what are you listening to outside of the church? Just as far as I know.
Yeah.
You got 2 minutes. Go.
I was talking to a worship leader, good friend of mine, not too long ago, and I asked him that question because I'm always looking for music to hear. I'm always looking to push our music forward. It's actually one of my jobs in my job description here is to push our music forward. So I'm constantly listening and getting inspired. And I asked him, "What are you listening to, bro? What's new?" Hoping for, man, I've been listening to this artist, so it inspired me too. He goes, "Man, I'm not listening to anything." I was like, "Nothing?" He goes, "Yeah, I don't listen to music at all." I was like, "Okay, how's your creativity feel right now?" "It's not going really well." "All right, how's your band doing right now?" "It's not. I don't know, I'm just not finding any inspiration right now." Through that, I was like, I could put 2 and 2 together. It was like, well, you're not listening to anything. What are you listening to? Like what? I don't know.
Relevance.
Yeah.
Relevance. That's good.
I think it was Kerry Newhall tweeted this, and he may have been quoting somebody else, but he said, if your music's out of date, your church is probably out of date as well.
Yeah.
So it's up to us, guys. We have a heavy responsibility to keep things moving forward. We're the artists of the church. We should be looking for the next sound, the next thing, where the trend's going. We want to be relevant to unbelievers that are coming in, new families that are coming in, teens that are coming into our services. Do they want to be a part of what we're doing?
I saw a quote yesterday that said, "If teenagers don't like your service, the unchurched will not like your service either."
That's good.
Okay. All right.
So yeah, who are you listening to? I would expand. Listen to more music than you're comfortable listening to. Load up your iPod. I'm grateful that I got these guys that will turn me on to music that I wouldn't typically listen to. And I have a 21-year-old daughter that finds the most obscure bands and will put them on a Spotify playlist and send me a link and go, "Dad, you have to listen." In fact, she's going to send me links called Daddy-O and "You must listen to this now!" ! And just all these really awesome playlists. I'm like, I have discovered bands that I would never listen to, and they're shaping our sound. I mean, you heard some things last night that weren't typical arrangements of worship songs that you may have heard before, but we're being inspired by bands that are moving way forward and sounds that we just love. So get out there and listen. Open your ears and don't get so boxed into the way you do things all the time. Okay. Listen to podcasts. Listen to, these workshops are great. Open your ears and listen and be ready to learn. Okay, here's the next thing. Serve. All right, I pick up a microphone. I sing and lead our church in worship for 20 to 30 minutes each weekend. That's how I serve God. And I would say you're half right. Most of it, you're serving your own interest. Because your mug's up on the screen. If you have screens, your voice is being heard over everybody else. Everybody recognizes you everywhere you go around the church. And that is not really serving. What Jesus said is that it's the least of these that should be blessed. That the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve. What are you doing to not get glory? And what are you doing to serve the people around you? What are you doing to serve your production department? What are you doing to serve each other? All right, it's little things. And you can tell when this starts to click in your team, it's a massive change in the way that you view each other. So find a way. One of the things we do, we have somebody on our staff that one part of their job is to find serving opportunities for our worship team every week. And we go to prisons, and we go to We go to homeless shelters, and we go to nursing homes, and it could be just 2 or 3 people that go with a guitar, but we're serving, we're getting out in the community. Again, one of our goals this week as a worship team is to outserve our production department, because they're here before we get here, they're here after we go home and go to bed, and they're working harder than we are. We're giving our all on stage, but they're also giving their all with busted fingers and ripped clothing and sore backs, because they're doing all the heavy lifting as well and serving us as we're on stage. And guess who gets all the applause and the glory? We do, not them. So our goal this week, and as we move forward, is to outserve them. Let's outserve each other. Have an out-serving competition. So our heart needs to be positioned towards serving. And guess what? If we begin to serve each other, we'll begin to serve our congregation. And you begin to make decisions on how you build your worship sets based on how can you serve your church, not how can you get your song out there, or your favorite song out there, or the song you wrote. Is this the song that our church needs to sing right now? Okay, move on. Number 6, struggle. Now, this sounds like a negative word, but it's actually positive. What are you struggling to get better at? Are you getting? I'll pitch my own workshop here that I'll be doing tomorrow. Are you struggling to become a better singer? I can help you do that tomorrow. Are you struggling to be a better guitar player, a better listener, a better reader, a better songwriter? What is in your life that you can say, okay, I'm going to work on this week? Where's your struggle? If there's no struggle, there's no growth.
Right.
Right? If there's no struggle, there's no growth. So find something that you need to work on and don't shy away from it. Don't bury your weaknesses. Go work on them. And then finally, rest. Are you taking a day off? Are you really taking a Sabbath? I heard somebody say a while back, I don't remember who it was, but he said when God rested on the 7th day, it wasn't because he was tired. He stopped creating. And so we're to honor the Sabbath and keep it holy. And if you continue to run and fill your weeks 7 days a week and never take that one day off where you can just exist and rest, then you're gonna hit a wall. You will, and it'll hit you when you never see it coming. Daniel, what did you say that you heard about if you're at 80% burnout?
Yeah, if you feel like you are close to burnout, you were burnt out a long time ago. Really think about that. If you feel like you are almost there, you were there a while back.
And God's a God of balance. Here, if you read in Jeremiah, what's the most famous quote in the book of Jeremiah? For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper, not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. What we don't typically read is that Jeremiah then says God's going to send you into captivity. And one of the reasons he's sending you into captivity is to pay back all of the Sabbaths that you didn't keep. So God is balancing you out. It's like, if you're not going to rest, I'm going to make you rest. And you're not going to like the way I make you rest. So, Sabbath. Do you have a Sabbath? I could talk about this for another hour because I'm passionate about it, but I won't. Examine your life, examine your schedule, and if you don't have time for a day off, then you're doing it wrong. Our Pastor George says all the time, you can accomplish more in 6 days than you can in 7. That's a spiritual law. So find a day, take time off, refresh, come back ready to go. Because if you don't take time to recharge, take a vacation. If you're not using your vacation days, you're missing it, guys. You have to take a break. If you're not getting off the stage every now and then, you're missing it. Yeah. And if you haven't trained somebody else to get up and do what you do, you're missing it. Because a lot of that's just being a control freak. Well, I know what I'm doing, and I can do it better than anybody else. I know what the church needs, I can do this. I've been there. I was asked to do that when I first got here, just sing every song every weekend until we figure something else out, and I did. But there comes a point where you just go, I can't continue this pace.
Right.
I have to. Thankfully, God brings Jordan along, and Diana along, and Daniel along, and all of these great people along into our ministry where finally I can say, I don't have to be on this weekend, and it's fantastic. And I can soak, and I can relax, and I can recharge. So do not take for granted, just because you're young, that you're going to recharge like that. You need that day, and find your Sabbath and keep it holy. So that's number 3 on our 3 ways to set up your band for a great weekend experience. I hope that helps. I know we ran through those pretty quickly because we want to get to some Q&A for the last, how much time do we have? Okay, so we have 11 minutes for Q&A. And if you have something you want to ask, try and keep your answer short, or your question short. We'll try and keep our answer short as well. So, all right, right here.
You mentioned listening to other bands for creativity. How often do you get out and see what other churches might be doing in their services?
Not enough.
Not as much as we should.
No.
That's the honest truth.
We do watch online a lot. We watch different churches. I even said this to someone this afternoon or this morning, that once all this busyness of our season is over, personally, I want to get out and visit churches around our area that don't do worship like we do. Like I want to go to some more like Methodist and Episcopalian churches that are a little more liturgical, because I find a lot of beauty in that. I find beauty in what's opposite of what we do. So we need to do it more. So, yeah, great question. Yeah, thank you.
So I'm a part of a multi-ethnic church plant, and one of the problems that we have is that we try and cross 2 genres of music. We try and cross gospel and contemporary, and that leads to a lot of frustration as far as ability. We have some really good, our organist is awesome at gospel. Contemporary music struggles. Me, no contemporary music, struggle with gospel. How do you guys balance out like ability in rehearsal? Do you just trust that the individuals will like just learn it, or do you pour into them in rehearsals? How do you manage ability, if that makes sense, and help people advance?
We rearrange during the week to play to our players' strengths and to go for we know the genre that we're going to go after, and if I mean like what I said, we've done that with some Lincoln Brewster tunes where we love the song. We don't really necessarily don't think the style fits where we're trying to go, and so we've done that with, honestly, we've done that with a lot of tunes where we'll just come in, we'll work hard to arrange it to exactly what's going to fit for our players, what's going to fit for our church.
Are you struggling with
it's
an
in a
identity?
rearrangement.
Are you struggling with an identity of your worship culture?
Oh, a little bit, but it's like we're creating. You know, it's like we're trying to create an identity that's a little bit. It's a little bit unique. You know,
So I'd say don't worry about it. I would say keep what you should keep on the forefront of your mind is let's figure out who we are, and in that process, you're going to have hits and misses. I'm always of the belief that let's have more wins than we have losses. Right? One of our goals every week is not to send anybody to hell. So, all right, we've won. We've actually won. We've won the weekend where we didn't send anybody running out of the auditorium with heresy. So, so I would say continue to struggle with that. Get with people on your team to say who do you want to be. So where there is a style that fits the people that you have on your team, and the makeup of your congregation. There is a style, and you just have to find where that sweet spot is, and then play to that sweet spot. That's what we do. Yeah, sweet spot.
Earlier you talked about having a singular creative voice during your rehearsals. Is that person your producer? And can you describe the relationship between that person and front of house?
Great question. Daniel?
Yeah, how you doing, man? Yeah, so as being lead producer, my relationship with Andrew at front of house is one of the most critical things. I'm constantly running up to the booth and we're talking. I'm saying, hey, I'd love it to move this direction. I'd love to hear more guitar here. Or what do you think about the drums? Or are we being too loud on the cymbals? I'm in constant communication with Andrew, and I try to be, and I need to get way better at it, to be more in constant communication with him during the week as well, because I have the direction in my mind and in my heart where I want to go with our sound, and he's the first person that I have to get with because he's making that sound happen.
And we have different producers. We sometimes we'll assign different producers depending on who's available. And we've got Daniel maybe out of town. We may need him to play on stage. So we'll have one of our worship leaders in the room, and we say, we trust you. You know the plan. It's on your shoulders. So own it and make the decisions. But that person has to be very well versed in what we want as a creative team. this is where we're going as a church. This is what we believe this weekend's all about. And here's our standard. And we don't stop until we get there. Okay, that here?
We're a smaller church, and we have a big team of level 4s and 5s as far as musicians go. And we play with tracks, we prepare, we resource out. And I feel like we do a good job during the service, but a lot of times the difficult parts are during the transitions, whenever the track cuts out, and then I'm really exposed to the 4s and 5s. But I don't have anybody technologically ready to do something that can make the transition smoother by running like loops with Ableton or different things like that during those transition parts. So do you have any tricks that could help me during those transitions? Because I love how yours, like when I listened last night, it's done so excellent, but it feels so free. It doesn't feel like it's structured. It feels a lot more free. And I struggle with that, especially during our transitions.
Who'd like to answer that question?
And I immediately go to atmospheric sounds. Just make for great transitions, whether it's a pad sound or it's a guitar with a lot of reverb, a lot of delay on it, and you're doing swells, just swelling in between the songs. That could solve it right there.
And look, I'm not technically minded, and if I didn't have some guys on our staff that just like know that stuff inside out, they live and breathe it, I would be lost. Like, I don't know what to do. My biggest thing is there are several things that you can do to cover shaky transitions. One is applause. If you can work towards an applause at the end of a song, that covers a multitude of transitions, bad transitions. Truth.
Start it yourself.
Just telling you what works. Hey, we do. I'm telling you, we've gotten to a place in rehearsal where we're like on Saturday night, we're like, this transition's not working. Just didn't feel smooth. I'm like, get in the clap at the end of the song. And I did. Okay? So, another thing you can do as a worship leader is talk. Talk over, share scripture. Don't get long-winded, but share a scripture that gets you into the next song, or just say a little something to the crowd, just to move things along to cover that transition. So that's a couple of things. I thought I had a third one, but I don't think I do. But applause is the best thing, and we're doing that throughout Seeds. There's a couple of places where we're like, hey, we really need the audience to respond here, so we can get into this where it doesn't sound like, oh, what just happened. Yeah.
So if you could help us out, that'd be great.
All right, we've got time for a couple more questions.
I don't know if you can answer this how in depth, but when it comes to applicants and volunteers for your ministry, what sort of lifestyle standards, appearance standards, especially for on stage, what kind of things are you guys looking for in that?
Great question. And we have been all over the map on this thing. We've been in a situation where we didn't allow players on our stage or worship team members on our stage unless they went through our next move. And they got all the way to the end, and then they decided they were approved, and they know what their spiritual gift is, and now we're going to plug them into serving in some part of our ministry. To the fact of, man, let's just get people into a small group setting, man. If we can get people on our teams quickly, then let's do that. And so we're kind of there now. Just make sure that background check, and we're not putting a wanted felon on stage or something like that. But honestly, we have a culture, and the people need to match our culture in some way. Now, it does not mean that I would bring somebody in and say, well, you don't look like us, or you're really odd. You can't be a part of what we're doing. But I will give you one example. You saw him play bass this morning, and he's going to play bass again tomorrow morning. His name's Jared Fopp, and Jared would not mind me sharing this story with you. But when we first met Jared, he was part of our church, and he had long, kinky, curly hair all the way down to here, and he wore heavy metal T-shirts, and that was it. And he wore pants and stuff. But that was all he had. But he was a great bass player. We loved being around him. We loved his personality. But he stuck out like a sore thumb on our stage. And so it was something nobody really talked about. It was kind of like, oh, there's Jared again in his Metallica T-shirt. And, it just looked out of place. So I brought him into my office one day, and I said, Jared, can I talk to you about something? And I said, have you ever heard that old Sesame Street song, one of these things is not like the other. He's like, yeah. And I said, Jared, I said, you're that one person on our stage that doesn't look like anybody else. And I said, we love you, and we don't want you to go anywhere. I said, but has anyone ever helped you with your hair and your clothing? And he began to cry. And he said, no one has ever helped me. He said, I don't know how to dress. I don't know what to do with my hair. So I just picked the first things in my closet, which is a metal shirt. And he said, I just don't know what to do. And I said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to send Jordan with you to the mall.
Good.
We're going to buy you some clothes.
Good.
And we're going to take you to the place where we all get our hair cut. And we're going to get your hair cut. And he was thrilled. And he is such a sweet, wonderful part of our team. We love Jared so much. But it's because we said, hey, can we help you? We don't want you to be Stepford wives here and like conform to this image that we want you to be. But when you stick out like a sore thumb, then that's one of the things that we fight against. We don't want anybody in really bright colors, right? When everybody else is a little more muted. We don't want somebody on stage that has writing on their shirts that someone's looking at. You know, what does that say up there? What's that band? We don't want anyone to stick out for the sake of, we don't want anyone to lose their place in worship, if that makes sense. So if you're worshiping, and then somebody's face comes on the screen and goes, who is that? What is that? What's his hair doing? What's that? I'm not saying you can't have your own personal style, but what we don't want is for you to be a distraction. So that's what I would say. If someone's going to be a distraction that you're bringing on your team, sit down and have a talk with them and say, look, we're not trying to get you to conform to who we are, but this is what we expect from our worship team. And lifestyle's the same way. If you've got someone that's out that is partying and doing things that your team is not, that's not we'll have them sign anything, but if it's just different from the way your team lives, we have to have a team mentality.
Amen.
And we have to encourage each other. So I hope that answers your question a little bit. Okay, one more question, I promise.
All right, so you guys talked about the arrangements that you guys do. You guys have an incredible arrangement yesterday of those songs. But when you're going through the project of creating that arrangement and changing things, what are some of the things that you guys look for that's your style? But then what are some of the things that you resource your team with during the week so that they're able to be prepared for that rehearsal?
You want to answer first?
Sure. Well, I think Dan needs to chime in on this too because he's more with that. But I would say that the one thing I'll say is if we're going for something specific, like once we have the idea, we listen to a song. So for instance, we have a song called Your Love Awakens Me. We did it last night. It's a Phil Wickham tune. Great song. We love the melody, love the chorus, love the words, but we just want to change the music up. And so we tried to find. Whit always says creativity is just connection. You're not making anything original. You're just connecting dots that you have been inspired by. This can work with that. This can work with that. So we liked the Beck tune. It's called Dreams. One of those big songs. And it kind of was along the same feel of the song already. We needed to tweak it a little bit more. And so as we're working on it, we may say, to the people that are going to be playing it, hey, listen to Beck. Listen to Dreams. And that's at least that gets them in the mood. Okay, I know where they're going with it. Now, when we actually create it, we'll obviously give it to them in advance so they can actually know the arrangement.
We will create a demo. What we don't do is create the song from the ground up on the stage. As we go all the way back up to preparation, we're not going to create our sounds and our feel on the stage. We're going to do that earlier in the week. And I know that's a big luxury that we have that a lot of you don't have at your churches. But it's what we have to work with, and we will actually create a demo that we'll pitch to our entire creative team to say, here's what we think this song can be when we create a new song or a new arrangement of a song to make it feel fresh.
A lot of time that demo comes out of that Monday afternoon rehearsal that we do, that practice where we're rearranging. We did that with Seeds. We brought the guys in that were playing with us in June. And we all got together in a room and just started jamming on some stuff. Kind of came up with the arrangement for "Look to the Sun" that we did last night, and got it to a place where we really liked it, and then just pressed record in the room and did it just live. And that's where we got. And then from there, the following week, we just kind of tweaked on it and worked on it. So.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry we couldn't get to all the questions, but we are around and available. So